In it here now, I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna been on here now, who bid $500,000 bid.
Welcome to the Legacy of Agriculture. This program will explore the past, present, and future of agriculture. We'll look at the people, products, and events that have formed its history. And now with today's guest, your host, Chris Bair.
Good morning, everybody. This is Chris Bair, your host of the Legacy of Agriculture. We appreciate you joining us this morning. If you're joining us on WNX Radio, or if you don't have time to listen to us during the 10 o'clock hour on WNX Radio or on Apple, Spotify, and now YouTube, you just go to the Legacy of Agriculture and our webpage, and it'll link you right into any of those platforms. And today I've got a very interesting guest on with me this morning is Tom Campbell from Campbell Farms, clear up in the northern end of the Red River Valley of North Dakota. Tom, thank you for joining me this morning on the show.
Hey, good morning, Chris, and thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it, visiting with you.
As most successful men are, I know that you're very busy, and I appreciate you cutting some time out to be on the Legacy of Agriculture. Your family has a very interesting story that we'd like to hear about, and how you guys got into farming. I know that you're a family farm. You grow beans and wheat and potatoes. And tell me a little bit about your operation, and then tell me a little bit how you got started, Tom.
It goes way back to from Grafton, North Dakota, northeast corner of North Dakota, and my dad was a full-time mailman and a rural mail carrier, and he had a small grain farm. He grew some acres of wheat and barley. So we grew up on a farm, and I always say Dad had us starting at a young age with old M tractors, trip plows. We started at 6, 7 years old. We appreciated it, but then later on, I always told Dad, I go, "Gosh, Dad, you used this as slave labor," and he'd laugh. I gave you room and board, but we loved the opportunity starting young. My younger brother, I have 2 younger brothers. My youngest brother, Greg, micromanages and runs the farm now. Does a great job. And my one other brother, which 1 year younger than me, we started custom combining from scratch when we were 16 and 17 years old in high school. Went down to Oklahoma, leased a new John Deere 7700 combine. And that kind of got us going as far as kind of, in essence, farming. Went down to Oklahoma and banging on doors. And that was a good education and experience for us at a young age. And then the first year out of high school in 1978, I started a potato farm from scratch. I had it with I got a small loan with a big prayer, $9,000, bought a full line of potato equipment. And after we got it, we found out it was nothing more than probably junk. It got the job done, but I know the farmers, we were born in the Red River Valley, where all of our neighbors were very prosperous potato and sugar beet farmers. New modernized equipment. Back then, it was the new 7520 John Deere 4-wheel drive tractor came out with 36-foot cultivators. Our neighbors across the road had one, and I was running an old M tractor, 30 horsepower, that was built in the 40s with a 8-foot cultivator or a 3-foot 3-bottom trip plow. And it was kind of embarrassing, but yet when we bought our potato equipment, which was very used and old, I was living the American dream that my dad fought in World War II for. He was a B-17 pilot. And I really appreciated it. The farmers across the road were probably laughing. But I was never so grateful and thankful. Living the American dream. I wanted to be a potato farmer, and that's what I was doing, with planting potatoes. We put 130 acres in with a 4-row planter and old John Deere tractor, and then we kind of started from there. And it's been a good run. Back then, the bankers, you had to have the 4 C's if you wanted to get a loan from a bank. You needed cash down, cash flow, collateral, and character. Well, Chris, we didn't have cash, didn't have any cash down, didn't have any cash flow, didn't have any collateral, but our banker always says, "You guys got character. You guys can do it." That's what got us our start, and I just appreciate my dad and all the veterans for basically risking their lives so I could live the American dream, which I truly did, and thank them.
You've said some things that I really appreciate, because I too was raised on a farm, and you could take the kid from the farm, but you can't take the farm from the farmer out of the kid. And when you talk about planting potatoes and with a 4-row planter, now I was young enough. I'm a little younger than you, so potatoes were always planted with a cab. But people don't understand what it's like to plant potatoes in the spring when you have a snow squall and the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour and it's 40 degrees. That's just plain miserable. That's just plain miserable. But the other thing that you said that took me back to being a young man is when you said an old 7700 combine or a new 7700 John Deere combine, I'm thinking, there are not very many people that understand what a new 7700. That's what I cut my teeth on, was an old gear drive 7700 with an 18-foot head, and those bring back a lot of memories. But I want to talk just a little bit about your dad. Your dad was a veteran, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for our veterans that keep us safe, that has given us our freedom and given us the ability to do what we're doing now. And that freedom, tell me a little bit more about your dad.
Well, he was born 1921, part of the greatest generation, and most of them are all gone now, unfortunately. But he enlisted in the, back then it wasn't the Air Force. The Air Force wasn't even allowed. It was a branch of the Army Air Corps, I think. And then later on, after World War II, they called him the Air Force when the planes became more developed. But he was a pilot of a B-17. He was stationed in Deanthorpe, England, which is about 50 miles north of London. And of course, they flew across the Channel and bombed all of Europe, France and Poland and Germany that, Hitler had overtaken. And they would always come back again. So they had a lot of 11 and 12-hour missions where they come back. A couple times they'd run out of gas. And I got a book. Actually, my sister took his memoir papers and made a paperback book. It was kind of unfortunate. We wanted to make sure Dad got it, but he died about 4 or 5 months before we got it from the printers. But so if you ever want one, Chris, I'll give it to you. It's kind of a cool book. Summarizes. It was called The Guardian Angel because he did 47 missions.
Wow.
That's almost his second tour. That's unheard of. Back then, if you finished your 25 missions, they let you go and you were done. My dad was very good. I remember I asked him, Dad, I go, were you ever scared? Or, because you were a young kid flying, the first year and a half, 50% of the planes that went over there never made it back. They were either shot out or POW, prisoners of war, in the German Nazi prison camps. I go, Dad, were you ever scared? I mean, you guys are young. A lot of these guys are 17 years old, because a lot of them lied to their age because they were, after bombing of Pearl Harbor, they wanted, they're just really patriotic. And, young kids that were risking their lives. And he goes, well, he said, we were too young, dumb, and patriotic to ever get scared. Which was, I go, okay, that's interesting. I put that in perspective. Today's 17 and 18 years old. I wonder if they could, fly a B-17 4-engine plane for 12 hours, drop bombs, flying through flak when you see maybe 50% of your buddies' planes shot down, coming back. I just look at that. I go, that's just phenomenal. The risk they took so I could live the American dream and you could live the American dream. It's just been phenomenal. And so many people aren't aware of it or don't even appreciate it. But I tell you what, every veteran I appreciate because what they've did for us is just priceless.
Yeah, it really is. Hey, Tom, we're coming down to the end of our first segment. I'm Chris Bair, the host of the Legacy of Agriculture. Want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Pfeiffer Auction and Realty and Land Management. They've got a great line of auctions coming in 2024. For a complete listing of all of the auctions that they have, you'll want to go to their website at pfers.com or simply give us a call down here in the Sioux Falls, South Dakota office at 605-836-2277. That's 605-836-2277. Nobody does it better.
Hi, this is Jasmine at Pfeiffer's Auction, Realty, and Land Management. Pfeiffer's offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit Pfeifers.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pfeifers. Nobody does it better.
Hey folks, this is Chris Bair. We're back with segment 2 of the Legacy of Agriculture. I appreciate my friend Tom Campbell, who are large producers up in the northern end of the Red River Valley of North Dakota, and we were having a great conversation about Tom's dad, who was a war veteran that flew B-17 bombers, and we were talking a little bit about fear. And the interesting thing, thought that came to my mind, Tom, when you told that story about your dad and flying 47 missions in a B-17 is I'm not really sure that they had time to be scared, did they?
You're probably right.
They were probably focusing and concentrating on getting there and getting back, because everything had to be timed and everything had to be calculated in order for them to get back to home plate.
Yeah. I remember Dad said that on one, they had the big 4 engines in a B-17. On one takeoff, when all engines were, full throttle, they burned more fuel in one takeoff than he did with an M tractor all summer on the farm. He always mentioned that. It was kind of just a little tidbit.
Oh, that's that. Again, I have the deepest amount of respect for our veterans that have fought so hard to keep us safe, and we enjoy the fruits of their sacrifice, and anybody that doubts that just completely does not understand American history. That's just plain and simple. Yeah. But let's talk a little bit more about the transition from the era when you were planting just over 100 acres with a tractor and an open station tractor and a 4-row planter, to the transition more into the modern farming, and how over a 30-year period or 40-year period of time that took place, Tom.
Well, as I mentioned, we had used potato equipment for $9,000, a full line, so you could imagine it was junk, but it worked. And what it taught me, and my brother Bill, 1 year younger, the two of us started this, was especially during harvest, we couldn't make one round with a 2-row lockwood harvester without a breakdown. And we didn't even know anything about a harvester, so it was kind of self-taught. Back then, it was simple. There wasn't any electronics. It was kind of easy, mechanical, pulleys, slip clutches, things you could kind of figure out. We had farm background, so we had a little bit of a common sense mechanical background. But what it really taught me is that it makes me appreciate the new equipment we have today, because I started out with junk, broke down all the time. Now, it hardly ever breaks down, and it just goes and modernized, and it's all electronic. And so that's what I appreciate when I drive in a potato field and see these modernized, brand new tractors and harvesters and stuff, that it's just such a phenomenal change from, it hardly ever breaks down. You got 4-row, the tractors are probably from, 5 or 6 times the horsepower. And back then it was tillage was always a limit of expanding. You couldn't get it done. Nowadays, with the big equipment and the planters, as far as quantity or getting stuff done is irrelevant. It's basically profitability, marketing, and so forth. Because with 2-row planters, you can plant an easy quarter a day. The grain and the beans, it's just phenomenal what you can plant. It's not even an issue of the time. It's just, like I said, the marketing and the land and the weather and stuff. So it's changed, but I just really appreciate the modernized equipment compared to what I grew up on.
The technology and the growth in the machinery industry has allowed a tremendous amount of efficiencies. You and I were talking before the show about the use of GPS and technology in agriculture today, and it's completely changed the face of agriculture, and will continue to change the face of agriculture. But I'm one of those guys that I truly believe that technology should never replace the human being. The human. Let's take an operator. Let's take a tractor operator, for example. The technology is out there right now to replace an operator with a tractor, or an operator sitting in the seat of the tractor. The problem with that is the common sense that comes along with being an operator that you would never get with technology. Tell me your opinion a little bit about that, Tom.
Well, you remember employees or man or women can make mistakes or fall asleep as well. So we're
Yep.
not out air. As we talked about earlier, the size of equipment, you can run, one 4-wheel drive tractor can pull a 60, 70, 80-foot cultivator. So, one person can do the work of 10, 20, 30 people 50, 60 years ago. My dad, one last thing about my dad, he was born in 1921. He was one of the few people that actually started farming with horses. And then we had him convert him to GPS in a 4-wheel drive tractor. When he kind of retired, he liked to drive a 4-wheel drive tractor if there's a baseball game on.
Right.
And it took us forever to get him convinced to get the GPS because he fought it and fought it. Then once he liked it, you couldn't take it away from him. But it's made very few people. You have to be born 1918 to 1924 to experience horses and GPS. My dad was one of those, but he fought it until he liked it. But getting back to your question on operatorless, I think the over-the-road truck business, we need that more so than farming, because farming, we're almost there now where we've minimized our employees with one tractor and stuff. And as far as the technology of the planters and stuff, you still need somebody there to oversee the filling. And it's a technical process of potatoes. It's not like seeding, corn or soybeans. So I think we're almost there as far as being operatorless. I think to the point where I'm okay with it right now.
Yeah, technology is wonderful for sure, and again, it goes back to the efficiencies, and there has to be the efficiency, because as the human race grows, they have to be fed, right, Tom? Agriculture is one of the most honorable industries that I know of. And the reason why it's so honorable is it's an absolute 100% necessity. And if you don't believe so, take somebody's plate away at the dinner table. Take them away from McDonald's. The other day I stopped at McDonald's. I was in a hurry. I hadn't had breakfast. I hadn't had supper the night before. And I just grabbed a sandwich and a hash brown, and as I was leaving, I reached in the bag and grabbed that hash brown, and I looked at it and I said, on our farm, the farm that I grew up on, as the potatoes were coming out of the field, they were hauled to a warehouse where they were washed and cleaned, and they were immediately ground into hash browns that were ultimately that we always had a contract with Simplot. And those potatoes oftentimes were ground into hash browns. And I looked at that and I thought, what? I could thank a farmer somewhere in this country in the last 12 months. Some farmer put a potato in the ground, oversaw that, harvested it, took care of it, sprayed it, and harvested it. And then all of the processes that it goes through to get into my hand driving down the road, so that I can have something to eat. That's really something to be said about the American farmer.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right. You just walk to the grocery store, any food aisle, any product. I don't care if it's bread or 5-pound bag of red potatoes or whatever. The things that went into that farmer, had to borrow money and the land and the equipment and the headaches and the weather. Farming's like having a factory without a roof. If it rains, you're screwed. And so I can appreciate that because I'm part of it. But there's so many this younger generation, even people older that just take it for granted. A lot of apathy. They don't even care where food comes from a grocery store. There's no thing as cows and milk, and I think that's a danger that we're in this day and age where food is. And we've never had 7-year drought, famines or droughts like the Old Testament stuff. And I think some of those maybe days are coming back where. My dad always said America's never had food lines, but he saw it in Europe when he was in the war, where people would wait sometimes half a day or a day just for food for 3 days and then go do it again. And America's been blessed where we've never had to starve. Or the only time I ever starve in America is when I'm on a diet and I overate for 2 years.
or a little larger. There's most people's tables are filled at Thanksgiving time. That is for sure. Tom, we're coming down to the end of our second segment to the legacy of agriculture. I appreciate you joining me here. A shout out to Pifer Auction Realty and Land Management for sponsoring our show this morning. We oftentimes don't give as much credit to our land management team as we should. So those of you that are looking for farmland to rent or looking for to be renters, you'll definitely want to get a hold of the good people at Pfeiffer's.
Hey, this is Jasmine at Pfeiffer's Auction, Realty, and Land Management. Pfeiffer's offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit Pfeiffers.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pfeiffer's. Nobody does it better.
Folks, we're back in our third segment. I'm Chris Bair, the host of the Legacy of Agriculture. Got my good friend Tom and family farmer from northeastern North Dakota, up in the upper end of the Red River Valley. Tom, thanks for joining us. One of the things that we finished the second segment on was the importance of food. And 100 years ago, 125 years ago, it took almost 90% of the population in the United States to feed the United States itself. Now we are farming with less than 2% of the total population in the United States that's feeding the entire nation. So I really do believe that a lot of the consumer has lost touch with exactly the process that it takes to have a Thanksgiving dinner or to have a bowl of cereal in the morning. So, Tom, I'd like you to talk to us about, from that farm to table, some of the growth that you went through, some of the changes that you had to make in your operation.
As I mentioned earlier in the segment, we started in 1978 from scratch, a little over 100 acres. And it was one thing to get the equipment and the land, everything to grow that. And then the second and the biggest and most important thing was marketing. One of our biggest things that farmers have always had, we've always overproduced everything, every crop for the most part, forever. And we need to be over marketing, not overproducing anymore. And so we got in this business. We found out we were kind of squeezed out. We were the new kid in the block. Nobody appreciated us. A lot of people said, you guys shouldn't be in business. You're going to go broke anyway. So we were forced to go to the markets ourselves. So I bought a semi-truck, an over-the-road semi-truck at 18, went out there. And there's a trucking shortage, so other people would load me. Any other competitor would load me because they needed trucks. I found out where all these secret accounts were, and I went direct. I dumped the load in the back of the plant, chip plant and stuff, put a suit and tie on, go to the front, and try to get a contract to us. And it was very, very successful over the course of many years. We went direct. We bypassed the brokers because they wouldn't sell to us. We serviced directly 40 different potato chip plants in the United States. Provided transportation. We got in the over-the-road truck business. We almost had 100 of them, so we delivered it, and it was a great segment. These East Coast buyers, and they never were communicating with the farmers. They were always communicating with brokers, which misled them. And we ended up, we were kind of blackballed initially, but we ended up expanding so far. So we couldn't expand. We had so much sales from that we couldn't grow fast enough. So we ended up, the farmers that were laughing at us shouldn't be in the business. We started buying potatoes from them in a large segment, large factor. So that was a big thing. It was all about marketing, and we became good marketers. I spent most of my life, the first half of my life, not sitting on a tractor, the first 3 or 4 years, but then I spent most of my time marketing out on the East Coast and stuff, which I enjoyed, going to the snack food conventions and stuff and getting to know these people direct, going with the owners. And so that's what we really focused on, and that to me is so important. Anybody can pretty much grow anything. Takes a special person to market it for a profit, and that's what we learned the hard way because we were blackballed. We were squeezed out in an established industry, and there's so many industries like that today, or in politics, where the establishment rules and they won't let anybody, the outsiders, in, and that's kind of sad because you need some young blood and things in it to change it up. So that's what we kind of experienced, and it was fun.
So what does it take to get a potato from the ground, from the farm, to somebody's table, or what does it take to get a potato processed into a potato chip, get it put in a bag and set on a desk for lunch, or in a restaurant, or something that's a potato that's processed? What's the processes that you have to go through, Tom?
Well, I would say potatoes is a 13-month crop because you're never done. We plant them, of course, grow them. You got seed pieces. You got to buy seed. We're in a seed business also. There's a lot of diseases involved. The tillage, irrigation, the harvesting. And then once you get done, most crops, whether it's wheat or sugar beets or beans, you pretty much, when you haul your product at harvest, you haul it to a place and you're done.
Right.
Potatoes are the biggest and the hardest and the most challenging thing starts when we have to build storage. We built our first storage is literally myself with my brother. Right. And you're storing them all winter long. You got to watch them. You get hot spots. Sometimes they melt. We had late flight scares and so forth. So there's risk of that. And then you got to load them with transportation. Truck shortage is always an issue throughout the whole United States, and deliver them on time with quality factors. So it's I look back at it, I should have went and gotten the sugar beet industry, which is so much simpler, but I like it. It's not just farming. It's a lifelong opportunity from, like I said, 13-month crop. You're never done. We never get paid for some of our product. Let's say last spring when we bought seed and put the inputs in, we won't get paid for that because we'll wash and pack through June the following year. We won't get paid for the last part of our 2023 crop for a year and a half later because it's still in storage and you're shipping it. So just that in itself, most people, when you ship it off a crop, they'll get payment, wheat, you'll get payment sometimes the next day or the same day. So that's another thing. You got to have, financing, and you got to have holding power and to stand, withstand that. And sometimes the markets will drop and you'll lose money. So it's an industry that's not for the lighthearted because there's so many unknown variables that you never know what you're going to go into.
My dad always said that the potato industry broke more millionaires than it ever made millionaires.
Yeah. Well, that guy said that he inherited the lot. He won the lottery for $10 million. And the guy said, "What are you going to do now?" He says, "I'm going to farm for 5 more years."
or two years, right? 5 years seems to he would be pretty lucky to be able to farm for 5 more years. But it's just an incredible amount of hard work, and it creates a tremendous amount of character in a man or a woman that is in the agriculture business. You guys up there in your part of the country, and we've got just about a minute and a half, the end of our third segment, you farm in some of the richest, flattest soils in the nation. Tell us a little bit about your soils up there and how it drains.
Yeah, I would agree with that because, I started 11 different farms in 6 states throughout the whole United States and keeping our suppliers in business 12 months a year. And without a bit dry land, there's no question in my mind that is some of the best land in the whole United States. The Red River Valley, it's the Glendon, it's the sandy loam. You got to have sandy soil, but it's got a clay base so it holds moisture. So you don't really need irrigation in some of it. And of course, it's very expensive. It's sold for $17,500 an acre this winter. But that's where it all starts out is the the core value of the earth or the soil. That's where it all starts. You can't plant Fargo clay or anything. So that's the whole key is the soil for potatoes as a farmer around the United States. You got to go where there's sandy soil or sandy loam. And that's the whole key. Without that, you can't start growing potatoes. So we've been blessed up in Red River Valley. Flat, beautiful, flat, black soil that's very productive. You can grow anything there, and it's a good area to be involved in.
Hey, folks, we're going to be right back with our fourth segment. Hang on tight.
Hey, this is Jasmine at Pfeiffer's Auction Realty and Land Management. Pfeiffer's offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit Pfeiffer's.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pfeiffer's. Nobody does it better.
Hey, folks, we're back with the Legacy of Agriculture. I'm your host, Chris Bair. Appreciate Tom Campbell for carving time out of his very, very busy schedule. One of the things that we've talked about briefly in the first few segments of the show, Tom, is the production side of agriculture, but the component that's often missed is the marketing side of agriculture. And you have been extremely engaged in the marketing side, marketing your own crops, basically, and being your own broker. Tell us a little bit more about that.
As I mentioned earlier, I always said that almost anybody can grow any crop, but it takes a certain individual to market it. We've always been all about overproduction, but we need to be over marketers to sell it at a profit and market it. And that's what I liked. I enjoyed that a lot. So we went direct to the sources, as mentioned. We started our own potato chip company called Grandma Campbell's Potato Chips, which we went direct to the stores with our own direct store delivery vans. We got in trouble because we ended up getting in Minneapolis, that the Lunds and the Byerlys, we were young kids. We get a lot of free shelf space, which our competitors, Frito-Lay, Old Dutch, and Barrel Fun didn't like. So Campbell Soup threatened us. That's a long story there. So we ended up changing the name, and then we ended up Frito-Lay, who were big suppliers to, they didn't like us because we were a competitor. So we ended up selling to Barrel of Fun. Ron Offen owned it at the time. So we got out of that industry, which I really regret a little bit because I liked that industry. And then we got involved in the fresh table industry, which we are now, where we put them in 5 and 10 pound poly bags and go direct to the grocery stores or the restaurants, put them in 50-pound cartons, size them, wash them, pack them, sell them, deliver them. And I like that. So we've always gone direct to the source. And right now probably 95% of our product will go to like Public in Florida, the chains, and it's in their label bag. Traditionally 15, 20 years ago, it was always in our own label, Campbell Farms or try Campbell Farms label. That's changed. Walmart's a big customer. They got over 50% of the grocery business. It's all in their label name. So people always say, I never see your potatoes. Well, you probably do, but they're not under our label. We private label. Gosh, we got hundreds of thousands of dollars in the inventory of different bags. Are always switching around. And so we're in essence delivering to them. But that was a big part of the marketing and anything, I guess, is important and that I enjoyed.
Tell us a little bit about the process that goes when a potato comes out of the ground. It's filthy dirty. It's been in the ground for several months growing. How do you get them to the grocery store and nice and clean, sitting on the shelf waiting for the consumer to buy them?
Well, we harvest them, and it's basically it's a big sieve. It sifts the dirt through. It's got chains and potatoes stay above it. We put them in storage. We have potato storages that are very modernized now. They're very, computer controlled with humidity, and you run air throughout the whole winter in cold climate. And then when we're always washing and packing and shipping every day. We run probably anywhere between 7 to 10 semi-loads a day throughout the United States. There's about 9,000 5-pound bags in a semi-load, and we'll do about 7 or 8 of those a day. So you can see we have modernized, all computerized bagging equipment. We've got 2 robots that stack them and palletize. So we've eliminated some help there. So we have electronic sorters that will automatically sort out the bad ones and flip them out, which is interesting. But so we wash them. We have washers that wash the dirt off, and then we size them. There's like 4 or 5 different sizes from the little ones, which is about 4%, which are very valuable. And then you got B's and your A size, your baseball size, which is the standard size, and you got the big ones, the premium. So, and then each one has a different marketing aspect. You can go to different accounts for that. And then you got the number 2s, the ones you pick out that are worth about half price. So there's a whole marketing scheme on the sizing and the crop when you get done with it. And you got different customers. We have all of our own direct customers throughout the United States, probably a couple hundred that we ship and pack and delivering to, and we're always challenging on the prices and stuff. So, and the Walmart's, is probably the biggest retailer, as you probably know. A lot of people don't know that. They're, whether you like them or not, you got to sell something to them because they're so big and powerful. They've always been good to us. People say, oh, Walmart, they'll beat you up, but they've been a good receiver. They're tough quality standards. They're very, very tough. People would never guess that. They're one of our toughest receivers.
Really?
So, and you got, your Kroger's, your Publix's, you got a lot of the chains you wouldn't even know they're out in the East Coast. And you get to know who likes what product, which ones you can ship a little tougher bins, because all your product is, it's not like making pencils or something out of a assembly line. It's unique. It was grown in fields. Sometimes you have low spots where there's lenticels and quality issues, or sometimes if it's dry, they're banged up and bruised up. So you're always dealing with, not every bin is perfect. And the ones that are, not quite perfect, you got to have certain accounts that'll take that. You got to push your luck sometimes. So you get rejected loads and you send them to different people. So it's a whole science in the marketing, the sales, and washing and packing that we've developed over the years. We got a great sales staff and a person right now that does a phenomenal job on that knows the industry. You know your receivers and stuff. And for many, many years, you understand who wants what and where. And right now the price is really good. Somebody else's disaster is our benefit in the produce business right now. Florida had lots of rains. There are competitors when it comes to probably March, April, May, and June. And
Right.
they have been short. So we're experiencing some really good markets because of their disaster. We've been on the other side of it. Sometimes we've had drought, we've had shortages where we had a big market, but we only had half a crop. So it's a whole different marketing thing other than just selling, wheat off the field. So we've enjoyed it. We've taken advantage of it. It's been fun. It's been depressing sometimes too, the ups and downs of agriculture, but enjoy it.
So one question that I always like to ask at the end of my show, Tom, is statistics are showing us and telling us that the average age of the American farmer is in their 60s. But an interesting statistic that the USDA has just come out with is that the new farmers, that almost 30% of the total number of farmers in the United States, 30% have only been farmers for less than 10 years. So there seems to be an undergrowing current of farmers coming into this particular career or this occupation. But I'm always concerned about the young kids, and I've got my children are in their 20s, early 20s, some of them in their early 30s. What would you tell the 15, 16, 17-year-old FFA student or young man, young woman that is wanting to get in agriculture? What advice would you give them?
It's interesting because we've come off some pretty good commodity prices, corn, wheat, soybeans for the last 7 or 8 years. So there's been a whole younger generation that's come back or started the farm, which they've enjoyed. I'd say stick with it. Agriculture always cycles. We're in right now commodity prices. It's everybody's gonna be pretty much breaking even on anything right now with the costs up and the prices down. Stick with it for the long haul. Farming is not a normal 8 to 5 like banking. It's like working in a factory with no roof. When it rains, you can't go out there, and it's if it rains during the week, and then of course you got to start cultivating on the weekend when a lot of your people are going to the lake and stuff. So it's not for the faint. It's an industry that you got to love it, because otherwise it's not a normal average business, but it's fun. It's agriculture. We got involved in banking and real estate since then, and those are more stable industries that I think if you're kind of faint, I would go into those industries. But farming it takes a certain individual because of the risks you have, that the uncontrollable risks that are just can be frustrating, but also can be rewarding.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. This has been a great conversation, and I've certainly learned a lot. Folks, we appreciate you joining us on the Legacy of Agriculture. Again, if you've missed us at the 10 o'clock radio show, we're on Apple, Spotify, and now YouTube. You can join us on any of those platforms, or go to legacyofagriculture.com. All of our podcasts are stored and recorded there. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Chris. I enjoyed it. Have a great day.
In it here now, I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna been on here now. Who bid $500,000 bid?
We hope you've enjoyed today's edition of The Legacy of Agriculture with Chris Bair, sponsored by Pfeiffer's Auction, Realty, and Land Management. Call Pfeiffer's at 605-836-2277.